So the places where there's new stuff in the application is not only inside of Action. Actually, there's a whole bunch of brand new tools and improvements to existing tools that come with 2012. Again, I'm just going to list a few, and some of them are really interesting, I think. Just here, an improvement to note here in the blur node, we now have a fast Fourier transform defocus algorithm that's a lot more robust than the one we introduced in the extension. Creates much cleaner blurs, also with a consistent performance regardless of the importance of the blur. So that's something. It's a very good improvement compared to what we released in the extension. But the thing that I'd like to mention here is the pixel spread tool. So pixel spread is a tool that we've had on our radar for a while, but weren't quite satisfied with what we were getting. But I think that we've reached a point where it's actually a very powerful and useful tool for many things. Pixel spread allows you to solve a bunch of problems which have to do with pixel filling in general, and one of them that is very frequent is dealing with edge problems on keys. So here I have a pixel spread node, and I'm feeding it with first of all a foreground that's a despilled green screen, a key that I did in the 3D keyer, and a background which is this blurred backplate. Go into pixel spread, and you will notice that it has multiple modes that you can use. And by default, it's going to switch to parallax. Now, this particular mode is really ideal to deal with edge blending problems that you can have sometimes with keys. And if you look at what happens here on the edges, you will notice that as I adjust my amount, I start getting rid of my edge artifacts, and of course I can determine how far I want to go, and the result is usually very visible wherever I have semi-transparent edges that typically cause some sort of gray artifacts when in the process of blending. And so here with a parallax, I can actually stretch the kind of create like a very subtle stretching of the texture within the boundaries of the edge. Of course, I can control how wide the effect should be, and essentially reach the ideal compromise to get the effect that I want. I can show you that this can actually be very useful also if I have very blurry keys. So I'm just going to get a preset that I've done already here. Hopefully it will show you. Okay, so so I'm just feeding this into an action, and so just take a look here. I have this particular green screen here that in my comp I actually expect to be blurred. And so pixel spread actually can help me deal with again, blending problems inside of Action. So if I take a look at my result inside of Action and see the effect of the pixel spread, you will see that if you look at the edges here of the green screen, if I were to remove any of the pixel spread effects, I have quite significant edge artifacts, and if I bring them back here, they kind of go away. So it's again, it's a very powerful tool to solve some keying problems. And in this context, I actually have pixel spread being applied to both my foreground layer and my background layer with obviously different settings. So pixel spread, I just want to mention that it is actually available inside of the modular keyer, along with a whole bunch of new nodes inside of the modular keyer. We'll talk about that a bit later. But so this is something that you'll probably find really interesting. Just want to note that you have two modes also. Every single mode actually that I'll talk about has a contraction mode or an expansion mode. And by default, what you want to do with keying is typically do an expansion within the mask. kind of just have to stretch the texture to remove some blending artifacts. Let's take a look at another mode, which is the stretch mode. Now, the stretch mode, in order to highlight this, I just went into action and kind of did a tracking of a bunch of G masks using the shape tracking. And so I'm outputting this mask. And the stretch mode also expects a matte as its input and any foreground image that you would want to submit to it. And what this gives you is actually essentially a warping mechanism that is proportional to the grayscale level of the incoming matte. So the wider your matte, the greater the warping effect is. And of course, you can fully control how much warping you want. And of course, what the width of the actual effect should be. So by punching values here, you can create like some pretty, let's say, soft transitions in the warping. And here, in the context of my track G masks, you'll see that it delivers a pretty good warping effect. Which sticks pretty much to, well, the poor singer. It's nothing personal I have against the singer. Okay, so this is the original image, and this is what it becomes. So stretch actually can also be seen as a warping utility that will create a warping effect proportional to the grayscale levels of your mask. You can see this really as a displacement that would happen in the plane of the image as opposed to occur in the Z, in the height of the image. So this is something that's actually quite powerful. And again, you can have contraction mode and you can have expansion mode. Now, in contraction mode, this creates like an entirely different effect. And again, it's really nothing personal, but it works quite well, quite effectively. Another mode that the pixel spread supports is what you call the interpolation mode. Now, the interpolation mode is interesting, especially when you want to actually spread the color of what's within your white regions of your matte towards the outside of the image. Now, this can be very interesting when you have something like a pre-multiplied CG element, and you want to kind of alleviate some either division problems that you may have when you're trying to do blending. So interpolate is actually going to, you can actually tell the algorithm that you're dealing with a pre-multiplied source, and what it will do is actually extrapolate the color that it detects within the white regions of the matte and spread them across the rest of the image. This is usually a useful tool. Well, first of all, you can hijack this to create all sorts of diffusion type of artistic looks, but it is a useful tool in conjunction, again, to solve some blending problems, but more with CG originated material. You have access to a shrink parameter here that will kind of erode within the matte to decide, again, how you spread the colors outside of the object. So lots of control there. It's a pretty cool thing for, again, CG originated material. One last mode that I'd like to show you is the vector mode. So the pixel spread actually also has a vector input, and this because it has a fourth option, which is vector warp. And so with vector warp here, I'm feeding it with an analysis that a vector analysis that I did with motion analysis, and so I'm slightly blurring it. And you will see that what this will allow you to do is actually do vector-based warping. And so let me move to another image here where I have motion, and you will see that what it allows me to do is actual real warping based on the vectors. So this is actually an interesting warping tool that can have, I guess, interesting applications if you have the appropriate vector fields, but essentially really it allows you to control a warping with any kind of vector. You can tell precisely this pixel should go from A to B, and on top of the effect you can actually add a spreading blur that will create in conjunction with it something that can be more of an artistic effect also. And you can even decide which regions during the blur go on top of each other. So here I can change the occlusion, and things will start going underneath as opposed to above. So with this sort of a vector-based warp, you could do anything from kind of like Rolling Stones type of interpolation effects between still frames. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you could do with this type of technique. They're all again together inside of a single node, which is pixel spread, which is a really cool tool to check out. Along with pixel spread, there's a wide array of new tools that you can check out in 2012. One of them that you'll find probably very useful for all sorts of things, including keying, is the denoise. So denoise is a long overdue noise reduction algorithm that actually is much less destructive than the pretty crappy degrain that we had before. So it's a very significant improvement over what we had in previous releases. And so I'm going to show you how that works really on this 4K plate. So essentially the workflow is pretty simple. Let me just reset everything. So as you see, I have quite a bit of grain here in this 4K plate. And so the first thing that you want to do with this tool is actually add analysis regions that you want to position in various areas of the frame that usually correspond to different ranges of colors and luminance. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few of these within the image. So where it's clear, I want to make sure I get something in the highlights, in the midtones, and in the shadows. So here, let me try and grab something also here, more like in the highlights. Okay, and once I'm ready to go, I simply click on Analyze, and the algorithm kicks in. And at this point, you see that it actually here created like a curve, which essentially added keys in all the luminance values per channel, the intensity values per channel that it detected in every single one of my analysis regions. I can then decide to augment the radius of influence, and it's going to be up to me to determine what's the most ideal compromise in order not to destroy too much detail in the information. So keeping the detail without and removing the grain that I do not want. As you see, I can also mix back in some level of detail if I want to, and I can also decide if I want to blend the original grained image underneath it. So I have an opacity parameter that allows me to do this. The denoise algorithm also comes with a median filtering that you can add on top of the denoise. And if you only want to use the median filtering, you can just deactivate denoise and activate the median filtering. The median filtering has all sorts of options that allow you to control the radius and also allows you to work either on a per component basis, but also in an RGB vector space. This typically will give interesting results. And so again, this is something that you can accumulate with the denoise if this is something that you see fit. You can control the number of iterations of the median filtering, but of course, the more you crank up this value, the more processing time it will take and the more destructive the operation will be. Again, you can actually use one or the other or the two cumulated depending on what it is that you want to do. Denoise is also available within the modular keyer. It's a very precious tool to deal with difficult keys on grainy footage, as it preserves a lot of the edge information in the original key-in. It is something that allows you to usually facilitate the extraction process. So something certainly to check out outside of just the ability to denoise. Denoise is not expecting any specific grain pattern. It is not dedicated to film grain. It is something that should work generically on a variety of different noise patterns, whether it's from film or whether it's from electronic CCDs.